Happy Monday, everybody. What's up? What's happening? We're back. We're rested. We're recovered. Well, I am. Anthony's tired as hell. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming on YouTube as well at the Team 980. And you had what looked like a very fun weekend in Dallas celebrating your birthday. And that feeling that you have is not you all of a sudden feeling old because you've completed another trip around the sun. I think that's just the reality of your weekend.
Yes. Do I look tired?
No, I mean, now looking at you a little bit, maybe a little bit, but you came in with good energy today.
Yeah, I walked into my parents' house because my car was at their crib, and my mom was like, "You look tired." And I was like,
Air travel plus a fun weekend preceding it will do that to you.
Yeah, but I think I'm good.
You're good.
It will be an early night tonight.
Yeah.
I know you like to go to sleep early. I think I'll be in bed before you.
Wow. Bold statement. There's nothing really on TV tonight, as far as I know.
Nope.
I think Rachel and I are going to finish the latest season of Barbecue Battle on Netflix.
Okay.
It's a good one. Oddly addicting. Another great Netflix food show. This week, by the way, banger of a week on Netflix. You got Receiver coming out on Wednesday, which is like quarterback, but with receivers.
Yeah.
Did you watch Sprint yet?
I have not.
Oh, it's so good.
I really haven't had time to.
Yeah.
I haven't watched.
I guess
House of
it only
Dragon.
came out last week. It just feels like it came out 3 weeks ago because this weekend was so long. Sprint on Netflix, featuring Noah Lyles and Sha'Carri Richardson and the best sprinters, Fred Curley, in the U.S. and beyond. A lot of Jamaican features as well. Really, really fantastic stuff. There's a bunch of really good docs that are coming out. There's a Simone Biles one coming out soon. Also watched The Power of the Dream this weekend on Amazon Prime. That was really good. So it was a good documentary watching weekend. But eyes in the DMV, Anthony, seem to be peeled not to what's on Netflix, not to what's on the Euros or whatever else. Nope. Eyes for Commanders fans are on Brandon Aiyuk's TikTok. What? This is where we are. Now, to be very clear, because I realize that the Venn diagram of people who listen to traditional old school radio and people who are on TikTok isn't two complete circles over each other. There's the overlap there. We'd like to continue to grow it. We'd like to have as many people listening to the old radio as we can, to the podcast, to those. But the kids on TikTok, although there's a lot more people on TikTok than you realize. I'm not even going to play into this. But there are definitely a lot of you listening that are like, I heard that Brandon Aiyuk did something on TikTok. I don't really even know what TikTok is, except for that the U.S. government is trying to ban it. I'm not going to get into the ban TikTok discussion. But what I will tell you is TikTok mostly is short videos. And sometimes I pop on there, Anthony, and I am amazed at how popular it is because it's your favorite athletes and celebrities doing bad versions of the dumbest dances that I've ever seen in my life. And I'm like, why is this popular? You're younger than me. You're not quite. Are you a millennial or are you technically like an old Gen Zer?
I am a millennial.
Okay, so you're a young millennial. You're just on the line.
Yes.
Do you get the
dances and stuff?
Yeah. Like Jaden Daniels. You go on Jaden Daniels' TikTok and him going, and you're just like, why do 5 million people like this?
I wish I had, an answer for this, but I will say this, Craig, and this is part of the reason I got off of TikTok. It's so addicting. So
it is.
I feel as though if you're, a part of the TikTok community, you enjoy watching the TikToks, then you're going to transition into just doing the TikToks or playing the games.
I guess you're like, oh, this is life.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna start to doing the little whatever. But like that's what it is. It's literally like elbows only dancing for famous people, or people that are gonna be famous for no reason. I don't know. I'm like, am I missing something? I've never felt older. There are also like great stuff. There's great storytelling. We clip parts of the show. We actually are on TikTok. If you would like to search my name, you can find it. Clips of the show in video form. We're on TikTok. But they also have photo albums, just like Instagram, because all these social media algorithms or all these social media sites can't help but do their own thing. No, they all have to try to be each other. So YouTube Shorts and TikTok and Instagram Reels, they're all fighting with each other. And TikTok was like, we'll let you do photos now in a carousel. No one's ever thought of that before. We call it Instagram. Anyway, the point is, Brandon Aiyuk, 49ers wide receiver, Jaden Daniels' best friend, posts in a, photo number 7 or 8, because yes, I'm a real journalist. I went and looked it up. Photo 7 or 8 in a carousel is just a still shot, no video, no nothing, of a pre-snap Jaden Daniels from practice on the iPad. Not even a full screen. The receivers aren't even visual. Maybe that's a sign. It's just the O-line and the backs. They're in a 2-back formation. Jaden Daniels in the gun. No. And it caused people to absolutely freak out. Absolutely just lose their mind. And to be honest, so we're going to have B. Mitch on this at 6 o'clock and everything else going into camp. But I actually don't know how I feel about this. I do feel like it's annoying. And I do feel like if I am Dan Quinn, Cliff Kingsbury, Adam Peters, I'm probably giving Jaden a buzz, being like, hey, dude, can you not watch film with, and I feel like Peters would be the one to make the call here because he knows Aiyuk, right? They worked together in San Francisco, and I think they had a great relationship. I think it's part of the reason that Aiyuk probably wants to be in D.C. It's very clear that he would like to be in D.C., right? He wants out of San Francisco. They can't really pay him what he wants. He would like to be with Jaden, but I also think he knows Adam Peters really well, and he probably trusts AP and wants to be here. And he looks at this roster and goes, there's a place for me here. And I think he's right. I think he'd fit in very well with this roster. So with that said, if I'm Adam Peters, I'm calling Jaden Daniels being like, buddy, we can't be, this stuff is supposed to be private. And I know that he's your guy, and I'm sure this happens on some level with regularity, where guys watch film together, whatever, but guys are also protective. Having worked out with multiple NFL players at once that play for different teams, back in the day, I would participate in / help coach workouts with my guy Chris Gorez, and I remember I'll tell even a specific story. So we were working on stuff with Lorenzo Alexander, obviously former commander at the time with the Bills, and Randall Cobb. At the time, still in Green Bay. I think this was before he went to Dallas. So I think he's still in Green Bay. And we're talking about scramble rules stuff. And we were like, you guys are magic in Green Bay on this stuff. Aaron just seems to be able to find you guys. You guys do all this kinds of different stuff. And Lorenzo's like, well, typically teams do X, Y, Z. What about you guys? And Randall's just like, I can't tell you that. I can't tell you. That's trade secrets. And while nothing that happens in minicamp OTAs is tremendously important, it's not like you're giving away a specific game plan. You don't know what's going to be important until later, and it's better to just protect it. And so that would be thing one on a baseline level. Hey, can you not leave either leave your iPad out for Brandon to play with or be watching film with him? That would be helpful. Although there's part of me that maybe you want Brandon Aiyuk helping Jaden Daniels with his acclimation to the NFL. Oh, if we see this, we are looking for that. That could be, I could see that either way, which is why I'm excited to have B. Mitch on as someone who actually played in the league, because I truly, honestly don't know how I feel about that. The part I definitely feel pretty comfortable in, not being this is a grade 10 emergency, but hey, this part, can we not, can it not wind up on TikTok or Instagram or Twitter or anything else? We don't need our practice footage, even if it's just one relatively harmless screenshot by nature on the internet. Let's just not do that. If you guys want to hang out, that's fine. You're human beings who went to college together. And there's nothing wrong with hanging out when you're human beings who went to college together, even if you're now competitors in the NFL. I am not going to old school, how can you possibly, blah, blah, blah. They're human beings, and they're great friends, and I have no problem with them hanging out. I have no problem with them hanging out and putting it on the internet. Go to the mall, try on shoes together, go shopping, go to a movie, go shoot, go work out together. Like, I got no problem with that. Don't put each other's playbooks on the internet. That doesn't seem like a very hard thing to do, a very high standard to uphold. And that's really kind of it to me. Like, I don't want to make this more than it is. By bringing it up, in some ways it feels like it does. It feels very hot take sports radio-y. And in part, it feels like I'm doing that because it's the middle of July and there's not a whole lot else going on, specific especially to the NFL. But I don't think it should be a problem to say out loud into a microphone, hey, let's not put the playbook / any of our practice tape on the internet in general, and let's especially not let someone from another team do it. But what say you, caller people? 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Any thoughts on this from does this affect how, whether you'd want Aiyuk here? Does this change how you think of Jaden? Does whatever? I would say that all of that would probably be a little silly, but I don't know. I'm kind of open here to thoughts. 301-230-0980. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. Coming up in about 13 minutes, Ryan Clary, who's currently in the bullpen stuffing his face with something. We'll investigate. What is Ryan Clary eating? We'll also talk to Ryan Clary about James Woods' initial weekend and week in the Bigs. Clary, of course, from 106.7 The Fan. Nats currently playing right now at Nats Park, but Wood homered this weekend, and the ball, Anthony, almost hit Clary. So that's part of the reason we need to get the story from a true, it's not bird's eye view, from like a just right there view.
That's pretty dope.
What's it feel like to have 109 off the bat coming at you in the outfield?
Would you have tried to catch the ball with your bare hands?
109 feels aggressive, but probably out of instinct because I don't know, man. That's coming in hot. Actually, no, I'm getting out of the way.
I think if it had some air, like
that's the thing. Like this
was here.
Yeah, no. If it's coming down,
yeah. If it's
a moonshot and I'm up in the second deck, yeah. But a laser like Wood hit, hell no. My biggest thing would be make sure my wife doesn't get hit because then I'd never be allowed to go to a sporting event again.
Exactly. Because
that is a fear of her. She's extraordinarily athletic in a million ways. Catching things, not one of them. And it's not even like she's bad at it. She just doesn't like things coming at her face.
Yeah.
So I would just have to make sure that it did not hit her. And if I had to break my hand catching it in the first place, if I better catch it at that point. You can't break your hand and drop it.
Yeah.
But Clary got out of dodge. He thought about catching it. I don't know. Well, I saw the tweet last night. That's what I'm going to say. So I was like, I'm going to need you to come in and talk about this. And also, we can talk about James Wood because he had a hell of a week. His first couple of games first like 5-6 games for the Nationals. So we'll talk to Clary about that coming up at 4:30. Also still to come here on the radio show later on, 5 o'clock, Stephen Wino joins us, the Associated Press national hockey reporter. The Caps made a front office reconfiguration today, promoted Chris Patrick from assistant GM to GM. Brian McClellan still with the team. He is now just the president as opposed to president and GM. I think it's really interesting. One, there is, I think, a fair question about why Chris Patrick and why now. Because Chris Patrick is the son of longtime Capitals executive and current chairman Dick Patrick. So, but also like he's been in charge of the Hershey Bears the past couple of years, and they've been ridiculous. So it seems like the resume is there. So we'll get the nepotism versus the resume and the skill and the talent and all that kind of stuff from Swino coming up at 5. Plus, they also just made a bunch of moves. So I think it's interesting that they like set up the year with a bunch of roster moves and then made the GM switcherooski in terms of actual official titles. So we'll see what Wino knows about that in terms of the timing and who was actually pulling the strings on those moves and why they decided to make that now. B. Mitch is going to join us to talk about what we're talking about right now coming up at 6 o'clock, which is Brandon Aiyuk and Jaden Daniels' continued friendship. As Aiyuk wants a trade, Daniels looks to start his career, and suddenly we got a screenshot of the Commanders' practice tape on Brandon Aiyuk's TikTok. Again, I don't think this is that big of a deal. I think it's annoying more than it is anything else because the other thing about it is spending some time on the internet researching, whatever that's worth. For this segment, Anthony, I was on like Reddit and all the intelligent places that fans go to talk about sports, and mostly I just saw Niners fans annoyed. Like, Commanders fans are all like, this is weird. Can you kind of leave us out of it? And then Niners fans are like, just go to Washington already, bro. Which is funny because the reason that he's not currently here or anywhere else is because despite the fact that they have to pay him, the 49ers are trying to win a freaking Super Bowl. And so if I was the 49ers, yeah, I'd be pretty annoyed. And I'd just be like, look, man, you're under contract. I know that you want a new one, and you're going to get paid a lot of money eventually. But we need, do you like the guys that you're playing with? Do you want to win? Do you want to earn your check this year and not get fined for conduct detrimental to the team or for missing time? Then, sorry, time to be an adult professional and play, and let's try to win football games. And they could still very much do that. It's the offseason, leverage play. But honestly, I think what's annoying about it from the Washington side is it feels messy. And we just purged so much messy from the football discussion of this city and this team that bringing someone else's mess into our arena is the last thing that you feel like you want to happen right now. And especially if the person who is, I don't want to put this on Jaden, but the person who is the vehicle for that mess coming in is the franchise quarterback that you just drafted to get out of all of the messes. I think that's the annoying / scary / triggering part of this for Commanders fans.
Yeah. I think the other part of this is more so just looking at it from our perspective. You know, Terry was in a similar situation a couple of years ago. Not necessarily the same where he's, they're not willing to negotiate with him right now, and we were on the verge of winning anything. But it's just the fact, how he carried himself. And I think Commanders fans should be appreciative of just, how Terry carried himself during these tough times. And the fact that Aiyuk is doing this kind of stuff, to your point, I don't know if messiness is what we want to necessarily bring into the organization.
Messiness is never what you want to bring into the organization.
It's just not. But it's a tough situation. It is a tough situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's the kind of thing that you're just like, I would just say, like, how do you, because you don't want to upset Jaden, right?
No.
Because it's not really his fault necessarily here, right? If they were watching film together, which, again, like, I can make an argument for or against. But if they were watching film together or whatever, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, we're, all of a sudden this winds up on TikTok, that's ultimately Brandon Aiyuk's responsibility. Like, Brandon Aiyuk is an adult. Brandon Aiyuk is a grown man. Like, he cannot do this. And also, Jaden is a grown man. He's 23 years old and is now a professional. And he can say, like, hey, B, like, can you not put this on TikTok? Okay, thanks. That's going to get me in trouble. I don't need these problems. I'm trying to be a leader of the franchise. But that's kind of the thing, right, is to take a step back. Like, I don't know how much this is actually a reflection on Jaden Daniels' ability to lead the franchise. Like, these are just some of the things that happen in life that really aren't that big of a deal, even if they feel wrong. Like, there's levels of wrongness here. It's not like he went to every Commander's opponent and was like, here's everything we're trying to do offensively. Good luck. And now you don't need it because you know our game plan. No, like, it's one screenshot of one pre-snap alignment from one play in one practice. But again, like, it's actually not in that way about the singular screenshot. It's about the whole Aiyuk situation and the fact that Daniels seems to be a passenger in that car. And while ultimately I don't think it has any bearing on his ability to do his job or really any bearing that's negative on the Commanders. In fact, maybe it's positive, because would Aiyuk take a discount to come here, which ultimately would be a good thing? Like, I don't know. The 49ers sure aren't. The 49ers are going to be like, you want to go there and you're not going to give a lot of leverage? And well, luckily Adam Peters knows there's good relationships there, whatever, and Peters knows Aiyuk well. He's not going to overpay for him because Peters, as much as he likes Aiyuk, is a pro's pro, trying to prove himself as an NFL GM. The first thing he's going to do is not be outside of, the draft class. First trade he's going to make is not going to be one where he screws himself over at the hands of his former boss. Like, he's no dummy. But, like, would Aiyuk potentially sign an under market value contract if it means he could play with Jaden Daniels? Like, I don't know. Maybe it works out in the Commanders' favor in the long run. But in the meantime, unlike Terry a couple years ago and many others, now there's many others that have taken more of this route, the social media posturing, how many guys have deleted their teams. I mean, Deebo Samuel did the same thing for San Francisco. Deleted all references to the team off your social media, whatever. It just is the kind of thing that feels very familiar. Familiar is generally bad when it comes to the Commanders. And it's like, don't bring your problems over here. But ultimately, here's what I would tell fans is I don't think this is that big of a deal. It is annoying, but it's the middle of summer. You can just not care, and we'll see where things are when training camp opens. And as I've said before on here, and this was kind of, I think where Logan and I agreed the hardest on the whole Aiyuk situation is I wouldn't necessarily make a move now. But if in the middle of the season you're better than you thought and San Francisco's had some injury problems or is otherwise imploded and is not as good as they thought, and they all of a sudden are in the trade market, that's when you pounce. And so you're months away from optimal time. And if they can't figure out a contract, then this dude's going to be available next offseason, and you can do it then when you have even more money available than you do now, and you have a clearer picture on, say, Jahan Dotson's future and ultimately how long he's going to be in D.C. based off how he performs in year 3. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. You miss any part of our show, always check it out on the podcast. Just search the Hoffman Show wherever you get yours. And when we get back, Ryan Clary hops in studio with us from 106.7 The Fan, talking a little Nats and how James Wood almost hit him with the baseball. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming on YouTube at the Team 980. And that, boys and girls, if you're watching, is Ryan Clary, 106.7 The Fan, host of the Locked On Nationals podcast, fresh off of the Grant and Danny program over at Nats Park. It was nice enough to come over here and hang out with us for a few. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Craig. How are you?
I am good. It's nice to have company in the studio.
I know.
it's nice not to feel like the whole place is empty because you guys aren't here today because you did the show at the park.
That's fair.
And then there's a baseball game.
Yeah.
Which does feel a little bit silly that we have you on because obviously the most hardcore of Nats fans are listening to the baseball game. But I like to think that we have people over here on the Team 980, especially who are Nats curious, who are like, I know they're playing all right this year. I kind of want to be kept in the loop in case I want to pay attention later. And so that's been our approach to Nationals coverage this year is we are Nats coverage for the Nats curious.
Yeah. I think that's a fair point, like, honestly, because the Nationals, I mean, they've been decent. They've had ups and downs all season long.
The up-ins and the downs of it all.
I know. I just ate a chocolate chip cookie. Bad mistake for coming on air, I will say. But ultimately, I mean, this Nationals team, they've had their upsies and their downsies all season long, so we'll see what they do. I mean, halfway point of the season, they're looking good. They're young kids, man. They'll probably get it back on track going into next season, I think.
Yeah. I know the trade deadlines, this is not where we're going to spend most of our time, but, like, they're still in seller category more than buyer category, yeah?
Oh, yeah. Not even close. I mean, even then, like, a few weeks ago, you could have made the case that the Nats actually could have been buyers, sort of. You wouldn't have necessarily, like, spent on, like, a ton of big-time kind of pieces. You could have traded away, like, your lower tier prospects, but you're not going to be trading away your Dylan Cruz. You're not going to be trading away, James
when you buy,
Wood.
what you're spending is prospects.
Of course, and this is why they've been bad over the last few years, is to collect guys like James Wood, to get C.J. Abrams, who's now an all-star, to get Dylan Cruz, the second overall pick in last year's draft. So you're not going to be trading away guys like that, but I mean, the Nationals, like, they have taken a big step up going into this year. They've got a lot of young talent. They've had veteran pieces like Jesse Winker have come up and signed a one-year deal and who has looked really good, and he's going to be a pretty marquee trade piece come this year's trade deadline. So you've had a lot of different outcomes that have been really good, including a solid starting pitching staff this year that is young, that is under team control for 5+ years really at this point. They're missing a few other pieces as well, but, I mean, they were looking at one point in time that maybe this team does compete for a wild card spot come September.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I think that's kind of fallen off right now, though.
Yeah, probably. Who knows? If Wood's good and, kind of fixes some of the holes in the lineup, like, maybe. But, the last couple of years, the pitching has been so horrendous that nothing else has mattered. So to know that they've got, like, a floor underneath them from the pitching side of it is great. But Wood's the feature right now.
Yeah.
Week 1 in the books for him, obviously continuing, I guess technically, the Tuesday last week maybe made his debut? So maybe we're still in the first week. Monday. So whatever week this is, whether it's the end of week 1 or the start of week 2, so far so good for James Wood, including, let's just get right to it, a home run yesterday that nearly hit you. I would like not the analysis. I don't want Ryan Clary, podcast host / radio host producer here, analyst. No. I want Ryan Clary, human being, ball is screaming at you version of the story of James Wood's first career Major League Baseball home run.
So I will say it was Wilson Contreras hitting the home run.
Oh, it was Contreras. Okay,
it was Contreras.
So you were there for Wood's homer, but this was not the ball that nearly hit you.
Yes, James Wood, I believe, hit his first home run Friday, but yes, it all kind of blends into one together over a holiday weekend. But yeah, yesterday I was sitting out in left field, and if you're watching over on YouTube, you can probably see my big sunburn right now. We did not get a single thing of shade all day long. So it's around the 7th inning, and my friends and I, we were there. They're big Cardinals fans. I was the only Nationals fan there. And we were literally saying before the game that we're like, hey, we want to sit out in left field. We've never caught a home run. How cool would it be to catch a home run? So, of course, we stay for that game out in left field in the sun, thinking like, let's have a good time, have a few drinks, whatever it is. 7th inning comes around. Wilson Contreras steps up to the plate. 2016 world champion with the Chicago Cubs. Hits a screaming line drive. Craig.
109 exit velo, I saw.
109 off the bat. 109 miles per hour.
Yeah.
A line drive. As soon as it goes up in the air, Craig, I look over to my friends. I don't even look over. We just kind of all stand up. We're like, oh, this is a home run. And then we say, as it's midair, probably like once it just got past the infield, I just go, oh, it's coming for us, boys. I literally say that. Like, it's coming for us. And lo and behold, about 2 seconds later, it is right there in my face. This ball is traveling so quick. Everything's running through my mind, Craig.
What's the highest level of baseball you played?
I played high school baseball.
Okay. What's the fastest, either like, were you
I played third base.
Okay,
was
so
considered the hot corner.
Yeah, so you got some screamers hit at you.
Oh, yeah.
Anything ever remotely close to this?
Nothing close.
Flying off those metal bats.
Not at 109.
What's the fastest fastball you ever saw in the box?
I saw like a 93, 94 mile per hour fastball before. That was like freshman year of high school, though.
Yeah, that's got some spice on
Yeah.
it. But like, how different is 109 coming at you?
Oh, I mean, it's so different.
And you don't have a glove.
I don't have a glove. I'm a few drinks in. I'm sunburnt. Like, it's a whole disaster. And also, there's a little bit of a tail on the ball as well, kind of coming my way. It's not one of those balls that's just like directly at you. There's got a little curve to it. So it's kind of hooking back towards us. And that's when we all notice. We're like, oh my God, this ball's coming right at us.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't at my buddy. It wasn't at my other buddy to my left. It was coming right at me.
At you.
I did not move a single inch. I just froze. I did not know what to do. So, split-second decision, and I actually posted the slow-mo version on my Twitter, Craig, at RyanClary11.
Good plug.
Shameless
Good plug. But
there.
also, people want to see it, so good
people
information.
do want to see it. It's like, I promise you, like it's just a plug. But I posted the slow-mo. You see me kind of going out with, like, the alligator arms, like, getting ready to catch it. Last second, I noticed that it's coming. Oh, no. This is coming for... the parts that you don't want to get hit as a guy.
Yeah, it's coming. It's a sinking ball.
It's a sinking ball going down to a sinking area. and it was not good. So I made the split-second decision to then kind of like turn around thinking that I was just going to eat it and just get hit in the side. Because I wanted to catch a home run ball, but I didn't want to get...
You didn't want a home run ball to catch you.
Exactly. And so ultimately my decision came to, let's just get hit in the side or in the back, wherever it was, and we'll deal with the rest later. Let's try to get this home run ball.
Yeah.
My buddy stuck out his left hand. He was next to me. Made contact with his left hand, nailed him in the palm. He's got a bruise today. He's actually getting an X-ray, in fact. Today. Yeah. He's getting an X-ray.
Yikes.
It was that hard. And it did not hit me. It fell right in front of him.
He's getting an X-ray. Clearly, he took the brunt of the ball.
He took the brunt of the baseball. The baseball made some hard contact with his hand. He is getting an X-ray today. I've not heard back on anything.
If you hear back by the end of our show before 7 o'clock, can you send it? Can you text us an update?
Oh, I will absolutely.
Okay,
absolutely do that.
And so then he picks up the ball?
He picks up the ball and he gets it. We're kind of like in a little tug of war, and we see that it's right below at my feet. He gets there just before I do. He gets a home run ball. So,
I mean, ultimately, you walk away with two working hands and no baseball.
That's true.
He has one potentially broken hand and a baseball.
Dude,
I think, honestly, advantage you.
I mean, yes, that is a fair point.
It's a cool story, but also
is.
you have a broken hand.
Yeah. I mean, but here's the thing, though.
Well, hold on. Here's what I would say. If he had caught it and he broke his hand, badass, yeah, but I caught it.
Fair.
There. You can't just... Yeah, I got hit in the hand, picked the ball up off the ground, and my hand was broken. Because he could have let that thing tag you in the hip and then picked up the ball just the same.
He could have done that as well. Like, I don't know what he was thinking, because at that point in time, like, I went into self-protection mode.
Yeah.
He went into, let's catch a home run ball. I was not doing that. No. I quickly learned, I'm like, oh, this ball is going to smoke me.
So, if you go to a game in the future and try to do this again, will you be the guy who brings a glove just in case?
I won't. I will. This is what I will do, though. I can't bring the glove to the game. Like, it's number one, it's just a hassle to carry around, and number two, it's just like, you know, I don't really care what I look like, but you don't want to be the mid 20-year-old carrying a glove around in the game. No, like, that's for kids.
I agree. And so this would be my play for the future. If I have kids in the future and I take them to a baseball game, then I can be the guy with the glove and be the hero who catches a home run ball for his kid, because I'm just here with my kid. And that way you're covered. Yeah. You and your boys going, I don't know that you guys can go.
Yeah.
Unless you just really embrace it, though. Like, that's the thing.
That's true.
Confidence, if you're like, hey, boys, we're here to catch a home run ball. We got gloves. We're ready. We're out there with the sign. We're here for a home run ball. Got our glove. Like, that could work. I could see you pulling that off.
Honestly, that is not a bad point. Like, I was just, I guess I just had too much shame to bring a glove to a game because everyone talks about like, oh, you don't want to be like the young guy bringing a glove to a game or a young man at this point in time. I'm 24 years old to bring a glove to a game when you have a bunch of kids around you or trying to catch a ball. So
yeah, you can catch it and give it to the kids. That's obviously a must.
Yes. Well, okay. Unless it's a home run ball. Unless it's a home run ball.
Oh, that's a hot topic.
Now, okay, yes, that is. But if it's a foul ball, absolutely. Absolutely. If someone throws it up in the stands, you give it to the kid. You don't think about it. That's the right thing to do. But if it's your first home run ball, I think you keep it. It's unfortunate, but I think you got to keep it.
Home run ball, you catch it. You keeping it or you giving it to a kid?
I'm keeping it.
Yeah.
No, I guess I'm older than you. I'm older than you. So.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe once you cross 30, that's when the line. Maybe it's even younger than that. Maybe it's like 27. I don't know, Anthony. If it's 27, 28, you just turned 28, right?
I did indeed.
And you're still a I would keep it guy.
I will.
Okay, well maybe it's at least 29.
I have no shame in my game, guys.
That's also true.
Oh man,
that's really funny. Anything else from the home run ball story that we must add here?
No, I mean, unless the fact that I got sunburn on one side of my body for that home run, I didn't even catch it. So
yeah, that's
so forgot to put sunscreen on my right arm, which is just great.
That to me is just the absolute funniest part of it. It's not like
terrible.
Oh, hey, was the sun coming in from that side? No, I literally forgot to put sunscreen on one side.
Yeah.
By the way, the British call it sun cream, which I think is bizarre.
Oh. That's a new little fact there. I like that.
I was watching the British Grand Prix this week. I was here in my Lewis Hamilton hat. We'll talk about Lewis winning the British Grand Prix later in the show in our weekend review.
All right.
But they're like, oh, yeah, the rain's stopping. Might have to go get my sun cream out. And I'm like, that's right. You goobers call it sun cream. Do you have time to stick around for one more segment and talk about actual baseball?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
I don't know what your schedule's like. Ryan Clary's blessing us with baseball information next. the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We should Ryan, Clary, and I need to apparently start a cooking show.
Yeah.
Give recipes. If only y'all could hear what the advice I just gave the young man during the break here of how to prepare his mahi-mahi.
Oh, man.
I mean, what you did sounded pretty good. I'm just saying we could up your game even more.
That's true. I mean, I do like fish. I like any fresh fish out there.
Yeah.
So I tried mahi-mahi the other day. I made it with one of my girlfriend, I guess you could say. Not one of my girlfriends.
She would probably appreciate that.
She would, yes. And so
one
of
your
course.
Girlfriend's seasonings.
Yes.
AKA your girlfriend's seasonings. I will help you out. This is why we're not going to do the cooking show. We're going to talk about baseball.
Yes.
Because,
yes.
I
walk myself into dead ends a lot.
Yeah, you really just kind of you sprinted into that one as fast as you could.
Ran.
Then tripped over the curb. You're like, wow, I'm laying in someone's lawn.
Yep.
All right. So James Wood makes his debut,
Mm-hmm.
and the first week goes very, very well, including a home run on Friday, which is one of the 3 Saturdays that we had last week, which is why I could not remember for the life of me when that actually happened before you said it. But yeah, he homered on Friday. Overall, 320 average, if I'm reading the stats correctly through the first couple of games here. How has he been able to adjust quickly? And, is there anything, obviously it's a small sample size, so taking it based purely on statistics it's really not that helpful. But when you actually watch it, what has he been able to do well, and how sustainable is it early on here in his career?
Well, I think kind of going back into last year, the main difference between 2023 and 2024 was that, his hit tool, the way that he was getting on base. I mean, going into last year, he was striking out in a lot of his at-bats at a relatively alarming rate. This year in AAA, this guy was batting .350. I mean, it's a really good batting average. It doesn't matter what level that you are at, especially when you're at the top minor league level. And so James Wood this year, one of the big adjustments that he has made is that he's putting the ball in play just a lot more. When you put the ball in play, good things are going to happen. You're going to get doubles, you're going to get triples, singles, whatever it is, you're going to get on base ultimately overall. And that is what kind of James Wood has prioritized this year on top of the other things that make him special, which is hitting for power, hitting doubles, home runs all the time. And as we've seen over the course of the season, he's been walking a lot as well, just simply getting on base. So he has found his footing as far as a hitter goes. We always knew that he could be this big power bat, which is what he is, but still, he is now becoming a contact hitter. He is now someone that could bat above 300 up in the major leagues. I think that's what he could be. We are looking at a very, very special prospect, in my opinion, who, by the way, was just named the #1 prospect in baseball at this point in time by Baseball America, which, in my opinion, is the best publication to talk about prospects. So this is someone who can really do it all, and he's going to be coming into his own as the season goes on.
Yeah, first, what are we, 6 games here?
7 games.
7 games.
8th right now, technically.
Yeah, so actually this does actually include that 8th game. So he's 0 for 1 today with a strikeout. So now he's got 7 strikeouts, 6 walks on the season. Is that a sustainable number? Does that number need to come down? And how is it relative to where he was and where he ultimately will be?
Well, big picture, I mean, he's going to strike out more. When you're 6'7", I mean, your strike zone is going to be bigger. It's as simple as that. So there's going to be a lot of holes in his swing naturally just from being so big. But even also kind of talking about other prospects, it takes a little bit of a while to get these guys to really kind of be their full potential. Like you saw with Jackson Holliday this last year when he was called up earlier on in May. This guy was a can't-miss prospect. The #1 prospect in baseball, hit an insane amount at every single level that he was at, from low A all the way up to AAA, and he got to the majors, floundered immediately, got sent back down, and really just hasn't been the same. So at some point in time, James Wood is going to struggle. I don't think he's going to be batting .300 when we're in September, but what I do expect is someone who's going to be a very exciting player, who's going to put the ball in play like he has been doing, and he has shown this track record of over time, that I think James Wood will be able to kind of find his footing again and play solid in left field and do all the things that we expect of him as a top prospect. But again, 21 years old, he's still young. It's going to take some time to kind of mold and kind of create this foundation in order to build this big high rise that we expect of him for someday being a superstar and being the face of this organization.
In the meantime, the face is probably C.J. Abrams.
Yes.
He gets to be for right now because he's got named to the All-Star team. What does this mean for his trajectory and what have you seen from him this year that he's already, rising to that level where he's getting this recognition in just his second year, really in the bigs full time and with the Nationals?
So this is such like a cliche answer, but being in the clubhouse, kind of talking to CJ Abrams a lot, one thing that has really stood out to me is confidence. I mean, the guy is confident, man. Like, one answer stood out to me, and we were down in spring training earlier this year. I asked him, like, what do you do on Sundays? Like you watch football? Like, you're from Georgia, you're from Atlanta, like, it's a big football area. And he was like, I'm not a football fan. Like, what did you do growing up on Sundays? He was like, I went to batting cages with my dad until his arm fell off every single Sunday. This kid puts in the work, man. Like, he does. And you have seen it from day one. 2 years ago, when he first got called up to the majors, he was raw. He was just coming off a broken ankle the year prior with the Padres. Wasn't really all that good. Did not have a good year one with the Nationals. Last year in the second half, really took off. And then this year, it's come April on opening day, killed the ball. And even then, you're starting to see some power. Craig, going back to it, like, people expected like Trey Turner type of things from CJ Abrams. It's a pretty easy comparison considering Trey Turner was also drafted by the Padres in the first round. CJ Abrams also drafted by the Padres in the first round, getting traded to the Nationals, take off from there. CJ Abrams is looking the part of Trey Turner, except a much earlier age. He's only 23 years old.
Right. Turner was an older guy when he got brought
Trey
up.
Turner
People
was-
didn't realize how
Yeah.
that's part of what I think people were stunned when the trade happened for like when Trey left was like, wait, how can they trade him? He's this young guy. And it's like, actually, he's not that young, relatively speaking.
Yeah. So he was drafted at NC State, talking about Trey Turner. Trey Turner didn't hit 14 home runs until like 2018. CJ Abrams right now through 80-something games has 14 home runs.
Yeah.
He's 23 years old. I was not even sure if he even had 14 home runs over 162 games just a year and a half ago. He's now doing it. He's hitting for power. His slugging numbers is amongst the best among shortstops in Major League Baseball. If you look at his slugging numbers as a whole across the National League, he's in the top 10 in that category. This guy's hitting for power. He's getting on base. He's hitting for average. He's doing all the things that you want him to do as a franchise kind of shortstop, and he is well deserving of this honor to be the Nationals All-Star. He's been really good. And again, if you're a Nationals fan, you're buying CJ Abrams' jersey right now thinking that he's going to be your shortstop, hopefully for the next 10-plus years.
For sure. Ryan Clary, you can listen to more of his Nats coverage on Locked On Nationals. And, of course, whenever Grant Denny let him chime in. You actually want to talk, you can come over here, although it's just kind of hard when you guys actually have your show.
Fair.
Because you have responsibilities and stuff. Appreciate you, dude. Thank you.
Always love
and
it,
we
man.
look forward to the update on your friend's hand if he gets that x-ray.
Oh, I should be getting that any moment now, so I'll let you know.
We will keep everybody updated. And if you missed that story, the rewind in the Odyssey app, you definitely want to go back to 4:30 and listen to the story of Ryan's weekend at Nats Park. All right, when we get back here on the Hoffman Show, Nationals and Caps, that's what you come to this show for. Steve Wino joins us next. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming on YouTube as well at the Team 980. And it is time, just after 5 o'clock, to talk about our top story. One of the teams in town has a new GM. Let's talk about it. It's time for Not My Beat.
Today's top story, from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not My Beat.
Our pal Stephen Wino is the national hockey writer for the Associated Press. And the team that has a new GM is the Washington Capitals. So it's time to bring in Swino. What's up, buddy? How are you?
Great, Craig. How are you?
Doing well. We've done Caps and Nats on the show today, which is clearly the hallmark of this radio program. So it's definitely the middle of summer, and it's a weird day here on the Hoffman Show.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, the Capitals are making news in the middle of July, which is not normal.
That is definitely not normal. Hockey's free agency is typically pretty tidy, and it just happened for those that are not, regular hockey fans. We typically have you somewhere earlier in the month. One of your annual visits with us, the Capitals will do something. We'll go, Steve and Wino, please tell us what happened here. And that happens in the middle of July, and then the hockey kind of goes away until the season starts. But I think what's interesting about this, Wino, as the Caps have named a new general manager who was their assistant general manager, and you can fill in all the details here in a second, is this also happens right after this free agency period. So why ultimately do they make this move now after Brian McClellan, the longtime general manager, and now just president, where he was president and general manager, kind of leads them through their offseason? Can you take us through the timing before we get to some of the larger stories and details here of the people involved?
Well, it feels like this is a plan that the Capitals have had in place, maybe not exactly to this timing where they're going to do it on July 8th, or they're going to do it at this period of time, but Chris Patrick was promoted to associate general manager last year. There's been a trend around the NHL, actually, of a lot of veteran executives going from being general manager, moving upstairs, so to speak, to be president of hockey operations and sort of oversee the organization and see the day-to-day control to a longtime assistant and lieutenant who kind of learned on the job and kind of has gotten some preparation for this. So Chris Patrick has gotten the preparation of seeing this up close. He's run the Hershey Bears through 2 American Hockey League championship runs the past couple of years. He's worked with Don Fishman and Ross Mahoney and Brian McClellan as that sort of brain trust with the Capitals for a few years now. He's been with the organization since 2009. And I think it was time, or we're going to hear from Brian McClellan tomorrow, saying that this is kind of, he's been on this job for a decade now. He helped kind of finish off the building of that 2018 Stanley Cup championship winning team. And now gets to sort of oversee the vision for an organization. Just made, as you mentioned, a bunch of moves in free agency and trade, turned over about a quarter of the roster, and sort of set Chris Patrick up to not run this on autopilot, but he made all the kind of big moves that now you just kind of let inertia take over, and there's still going to be a lot of oversight from Brian McClellan over kind of what the Capitals do from a hockey standpoint, but give Chris Patrick the ability to kind of handle some of the day-to-day stuff, the contracts, the sort of interactions with Spencer Carberry, the coaching staff, and maybe have a little more less of a hands-on approach from Brian McClellan and more for Chris Patrick.
So for Chris Patrick, he was obviously involved in all of these moves because he was the assistant general manager until this morning when they made this move. He was involved and surely approved of the contracts, whatever. But as far as we know, McClellan still ran this offseason and then handed the baton versus secretly Chris Patrick was kind of having a test run here and was actually the man in charge. And then they just made it all official afterwards.
Yeah, no, I think that the former certainly, and Brian McClellan sort of almost choreographed this or telegraphed this offseason for us at some point in late June, saying this is kind of what I want to do. I want an extra forward. I want to change the mix-up on defense. He never really sort of answered our questions a few months ago about the goaltending situation, and clearly had some eyes on wanting to change that. Yeah, this is a Brian McClellan move, and I think I don't want to overstate that Brian McClellan's still going to be sort of here. Right? He's not going anywhere. This is not a regime change. This is sort of a succession plan of Brian McClellan sort of handing the baton off a little bit here. But I still think, but as president of hockey operations, he's still going to have say over the moves that this organization makes from now on.
Steve Wino is our guest, of course, the national hockey writer for the Associated Press, with us here on the Hoffman Show. So Chris Patrick is the man here, as you said. He is the general manager now, doing the day-to-day stuff. He is the son of Dick Patrick, the long time Capitals executive, who currently is the chairman of the Capitals. Like, obviously, there's incredibly impressive resume for Chris Patrick, but how do you try to sort through the nepotism of this is the chairman's son versus a guy who also, as you said earlier, has run the Hershey Bears, for instance, for the last 2 years, and they've had championship seasons. So there's merit, there's nepotism, there's all of it. How do you make sense of all of that?
Well, I think getting the opportunity certainly helps having that name and having your dad running a team. The Capitals drafted Chris Patrick as a player way back in the day in the 8th round. He never wound up playing in the NHL, but certainly when he was ready to become an executive, getting a shot, being Dick Patrick's son, certainly didn't hurt. He started as a pro scout in 2009, but I think at that point it doesn't really matter what kind of where your family history is if you're not good at a job. And we've seen Chris Patrick climb the ranks from scout to director of player personnel, to assistant GM, to associate GM, and now to general manager of his hockey team, that he's gotten that on-the-job training. He's climbed the ladder. He's paid his dues over time, which you can understand people from the outside saying, oh, yes, of course, you have the team president and chairman is Dick Patrick, and now his son is running the team as general manager. And there'll be plenty of legitimate questions of Ted Leonsis and Dick Patrick and Brian McClellan and Chris Patrick when they meet with us tomorrow outside the arena, that about sort of what the power structure is going to be and who's in charge of what. But there's no doubt that Chris Patrick has been on the job long enough that you can't just say this was a sort of a nepotism hire.
No doubt. And I think that's the interesting part of this. And if you want to go even elsewhere monumental, like a guy like Eric Thibault, who gets the head coaching job of the Mystics with his dad still as the general manager stepping down, is you can have elements of both. You can have doors open for you because of any number of connections. That is networking. It's just a lot easier when it's your dad or your family member who opens that door. But ultimately, the result, like in sports, there are scoreboards and the result is the result. So as you know, the league as well as anyone, like what is Chris Patrick's reputation around the NHL, nevertheless, here in Washington?
Yeah, a good one, and most of this comes from his work with the Hershey Bears and working with Brian Helmer, who's a former Capitals defenseman, who's now general manager of and president of the Hershey Bears down there, and sort of the cooperation that the Capitals and the Hershey Bears have had over the years, building an American Hockey League powerhouse, and in one of the kind of the more fervent minor league sports towns in the U.S. and in Hershey, and now having a team that's a perennial contender that won back-to-back Calder Cup championships. That's where people know Chris Patrick from now at this point, is he is, along with Brian Helmer, kind of constructed teams that have won at that level, and that's no guarantee that he's going to be able to do the same thing at the NHL level like Brian McClellan did, like George McPhee started before Brian McClellan took over in 2014. But it's an indication of him being able to kind of sort of run a team and piece together a winning roster that can at least contend for a championship.
And that leads us to the roster, Wino, last but not least, with Steve Wino, national hockey writer for the AP. McClellan did make all these moves before they elevate Patrick here. And I was reading Barry's columns for Luca's column in the Post, and, you know, Barry made it sound like they got everything they could have ever dreamed of this offseason. And I know that's really hard in the NHL because there's a strict hard cap and maneuvering contracts can be very difficult. How well did McClellan do this offseason? Like, what kind of team are we talking about for 2024-25 here in Washington?
I think he did really well, and that's not to say the Capitals could not miss the playoffs next year. If everything goes right, this team is certainly much better than it was squeaking into the playoffs in the last game of the season, getting swept by the New York Rangers in the first round. The sort of problems or maybe things that could have made things go wrong one game and miss the playoffs by a couple points have been fixed. The goaltending situation seems better, or at least for $2 million combined between Logan Thompson and Charlie Lindgren, a very cap-efficient way of having hockey's most important position. You get a center in Pierre-Luc Dubois, who is a high-risk, high-reward sort of acquisition where he's getting paid $8 million a year, but also if he performs to his potential, to what he's getting paid, is going to be a great help to Alex Ovechkin to score a bunch of goals, to maybe break Wayne Gretzky's goal record. And just like Brian McClellan said he wanted to do, he wanted to change up the mix on defense. Jacob Chikrin's a more offensive defenseman than Nick Jensen, a bigger guy. Matt Roy is a bigger guy, and certainly a blue line that he's not going to have to lean on John Carlson playing 27 minutes a night. I think objectively the Capitals completed everything on their off-season shopping list. It's no complete guarantee that they're going to make the playoffs, but what Brian McClellan has done for Spencer Carberry, for Alex Ovechkin, and for this team is set it up to have the most success possible. And at a certain point, the players have to perform, and Brian McClellan said this last week, is that you still have to have that. You still have to have Pierre-Luc Dubois being a great player, and Alex Ovechkin at 39 scoring goals like no one else has in NHL history for this team to make the playoffs and succeed. But when you say what did they want to accomplish this offseason, they basically did it all.
That's impressive. Steve Wino, Associated Press, national hockey writer. Enjoy your couple quiet weeks, and then we'll see you when you're back in football mode in Ashburn here in a few.
Thanks, Greg. See you then. Thanks very much.
That is Steve Wino, everybody, with us here on the Hoffman Show. Of course, national hockey writer and D.C.-based correspondent for the Associated Press. Great friend of the show. He's also got a book that he wrote about when goaltenders come out of the stands. Which is one of the wackiest bits in hockey. That's a real thing. And Wino wrote a book about it. So you can go check that out wherever good books are sold. When we get back here on the Hoffman Show, Anthony, I know at 5:30 we are talking about Anthony Edwards' comments that he is going to be the number one option on Team USA. I forget what we put here at 5:15. Producer of the show, what are we doing?
We will be talking about whether or not if the NFL was to go to 18 weeks, what would it look like? 2 bye weeks?
Yeah, Joe Burrow had an idea, and I really liked it. We'll talk about it next here on the Team 9-8. the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Brian Mitchell coming up at 6 p.m. Right now, though, Joe Burrow was on Pardon My Take, very popular podcast. If you're unaware, if you are aware, then you're probably like, why did you explain what Pardon My Take is? He was on a very popular podcast. It's called Pardon My Take. And he was asked about the NFL going to an 18-game season. And Joe Burrow said, I think that if we do that, we should have 2 buys. That is not a new thought. That is not an original thought. That is a very sensical thought. But that was not what got his answer attention, Anthony Haney. That was just part of it. Joe Burrow had the thought to say that he thinks if they go to 18 games, that they should have 2 buys. And one of them should essentially be an all-star break, where you have the Pro Bowl games, figure out where, whatever, but you do the Pro Bowl festivities somewhere around week 13. Everybody gets the week off, and then you get to it on the back half of the schedule. And a lot of people liked it. A whole lot of people, a lot of players, including Zaire Franklin, tweeted, like, this is amazing. Nico Collins from the Texans tweeted, we ain't never seen a man cook like this. So he's a big fan. The idea of an entire week off, I think, is a tough sell from, like, the marketing wing of the NFL. So filling it with the Pro Bowl situation, I actually think is not a bad idea at all, especially if you could maybe condense it down to where you're not having guys have to be there the whole week, because guys are going to want to take off, right? Like, oh, I get a week off in the middle of the season. I don't want to have to go to Orlando or Vegas or wherever. Maybe I want to go to Orlando or Vegas, but if I do, I'm taking my kids or I'm going to Vegas. I'm not necessarily going to play a bunch of games and do silly stuff and be a marketing tool for the league. I want off. So you'd have to navigate that for the league's best players. And the NBA obviously just dealt with this where they're like, okay, fine, we're going to extend the All-Star break even longer. But I also wonder if there's a way to do it to kind of extend out even more, because week 13 puts you like the week after Thanksgiving. And so, I don't know, could you do more games on Black Friday? Could you do something? It's the last, college football, that's a huge weekend, so you don't necessarily want to do games on Saturday. But I don't know, is there a way to do it that you still get guys that want to go to the Caribbean, time to go to the Caribbean, most of a full week off, and then where do you do the Pro Bowl games so that it's not a pain in the butt for everybody to get there? There are logistical hurdles, but the idea of I think the biggest part of this I like is that the whole league is off at once. There's no games for an entire week in the middle of the season. For as much as that would suck for, like, us in the media and break the rhythm of football, I do think, like, giving everybody that element of freshness going into the final stretch of the season, I dig.
I love the proposal as well. But my only question would be, if you do move the Pro Bowl games up to, week 13, what happens from the conference championships and then the Super Bowl? Well,
it used to be nothing, right? Because they used to do the Pro Bowl after the Super Bowl. And so I guess you'd return to that, but I do think that is a thing. I do kind of like the Pro Bowl where it is in between, and then the players that play in the Super Bowl, because that's the other part of it is, right, the players that play in the Super Bowl don't get to participate. So that's always been a bit of a snafu. And it used to be like, hey, you won the Super Bowl, and now you get a free trip to Hawaii. And that was cool. And they played the Pro Bowl, and that was that. And then, people stopped showing up for the Pro Bowl. In the trip to Hawaii just didn't mean as much anymore. Player salaries were so much. Dudes were like, well, we'll just go to Hawaii whenever we want to. Like, we don't need a free family trip. And flying all that way right after the season kind of sucks. Like, I just want to go home and go to my house that I own in the off season. Mm-hmm. That kind of deal. So I don't know. It's an interesting thought though, because having it in the middle of the season, because then there's also the reality that they name the Pro Bowlers kind of in the middle of the season. So you kind of have you wouldn't have the last 4 or 5 weeks count towards the Pro Bowl, but that already is the case. So, but you would, I guess, like week 12, you name the rosters, week 13, you'd have the game. or the games, because they do all these silly games now. And by silly, I mean wonderful. It's very fun to watch them play dodgeball, whatever. But I also do think, like, the teams would probably be like, look, if someone gets hurt playing a goofy game right after the season, whatever, a dude jams a finger catching 6 footballs in a punt in the middle of the season, the team's going to have a fit.
Yeah.
So I like it. It is more similar to how the rest of the leagues do all-star stuff, but also the rest of the all-star situations are dying. The NBA is ready to scrap the whole weekend because it sucks. The NHL is like playing, I don't even know what the NHL does anymore. Baseball's all-star game is sweet because it's actually a baseball game. Because the injury risk playing baseball is just much less than it is playing these other sports where there's contact. So, yeah, like, I think it has very little chance of becoming reality, but I don't hate the idea. My question would be, like, what could you do that would be interesting to fill time on Sunday in the middle of the season, or find a week that makes sense to not have games where the whole league can be off together? Or could you just say, like, the second bye, everyone either gets week 13 or week 14? Like, every bye is going to be, first bye is between week 3 and week 7, and then they split the league in 2, and there's a ton of high-profile games, week 13 and week 14, and then 15, 16, 17, 18, sprint to the finish. Like, I guess you could do it that way. And the second bye being only a week apart doesn't matter as much.
Yeah. I think also with the proposal itself, like the fact that you just mentioned all the all-star games are like basically dying, I think people just look forward to change. So maybe this is,
do it for 5 years.
Yes. You do it for a short period of time and then, like, you got to change. I just think it's just hard, like, where we are in the world to just consistently do the same thing. I think it has to be consistent change.
That was the thing, is like a couple years ago when they did the Pro Bowl games for the first time, people were super into it because it was new and it was fun and it was exciting and it was interesting. And, a couple years ago, the NBA thought they saved the All-Star game with the let's play to 24 in the fourth quarter deal. And it was incredible for that first year. And then everyone was like, this is kind of whack. And they also got really lucky that first year because the way the game played out, it was genuinely close late. Like, the last couple years they did it, it was a blowout, and it was just a foregone conclusion to see how quickly the game was going to end, and nobody was really that into it anymore. So the newness thing, I think, Ant, you're 100% right on, because this would have novelty. People would be into it. People would watch it. Maybe even some people that don't watch it when it's in February. And then after a couple of years, people would be like, why are we doing this in the middle of the season? Someone would get hurt. Players are going to be, on their third or fourth straight one because the best of the best would be like, I don't really want to go. I just want to go home with my family. I don't want to risk getting hurt. We're in the middle of a playoff race. I can see how it goes downhill quickly. So I get it. I think conceptually the idea of giving the full week off is good. I don't know that moving the Pro Bowl games to the middle of the season is actually a smart move. When we get back, speaking of, hey, is that a smart move? Anthony Edwards spoke up and gave his thought on where he is on the Team USA pecking order. And if you haven't heard these comments, you're going to want to, and you will probably be surprised at where the young man thinks of himself. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app and streaming on YouTube at the Team 980. Brian Mitchell on the Commanders coming up at 6 p.m. But right now, Anthony Haney. Let's talk about Anthony Edwards, which is going to be not confusing at all for the rest of the segment as we talk about Ants and Anthonys and et cetera, et cetera. So yesterday, or this weekend, Team USA kicked off their training camp in Las Vegas. Of course, Team USA men's basketball, stacked, loaded team ahead of the Paris Olympics, looking to bring back a gold medal. Arguably the greatest roster that USA basketball has ever assembled, which I realize is a heavy statement, but it's certainly the best collection of resumes that USA basketball has ever done 1 through 12. Typically, guys 10, 11, 12, they've had some glue-type players. So I would even argue that maybe there's some better versions of actual basketball teams, and it's something that we will argue over the next coming weeks because it's the middle of July, and this is the things that we're going to argue on sports radio. This is what sports radio was meant for, not many of the other silly things that we wind up yelling about. But the point is, resume-wise, there's never been a collection of resumes better than what is currently on USA basketball headed to Paris trying to bring home a gold in these Olympic Games. And part of that roster, the youngest part, in fact, is Anthony Edwards, the Timberwolves star, fresh off a second-team All-NBA, career high, nearly 26 points per game. Was awesome for the first part of the playoffs before they hit the Dallas Mavericks roadblock, and he certainly hit a roadblock in that series for sure. Said he got tired in the series. And so he was asked, like, hey, you're the young guy around here. What's your role going to be on this team? And he answered in a way that not many people expected.
Y'all might look at it differently. I don't look at it differently.
And how does that manifest in your how do you go about it? Just go about it the same way?
Yeah, I just go out there and be myself. Shoot my shots, play defense, and, they got to fit in to play around me. That's how I feel.
Nice. So if you couldn't hear it through the bouncing balls in the mediocre audio, he said, I'm going to go out there and be me. They have to fit in around me. That's the way I look at it. They are LeBron James, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Joel Embiid, etc., etc. And I have thoughts here. I'm curious what your thoughts are first. I don't want to poison the jury pool here. What did you make when you saw/heard this?
I mean, I just view it as he sees himself as an alpha. He's amongst other alphas. And there was a point later on in the interview or the media session where he talked about, games on the line, like who you looking forward to. He didn't say himself. He said Kevin Durant because he deems Kevin Durant as probably the alpha amongst all alphas on that team or the best player in his eyes. That's also his favorite player. So I think the comment itself was more so he's confident. Like, he's a confident young guy, and he's amongst, other great players. And I think the comment itself does come off a little as, like,
comes off a little arrogant.
Yeah, a little egotistical, but I wouldn't necessarily take those words to heart because I think Team USA, they're used to just playing a selfless brand of basketball. We don't see guys going out there put up 20, 25 shots like it's their regular team. I just think in that moment he was more so just talking about who he is as a player. He's an alpha.
I think it is extremely annoying that he said, they have to fit around me.
Yeah.
That's the only problematic part, and I actually don't believe that he believes that.
Yeah.
Like, Anthony Edwards is actually not like a ball hog type of basketball player. He is a very intelligent, although he has said a number of dumb things, some of them more serious than others. He's a very intelligent basketball player. His defensive IQ is outrageously high, which you see when he makes all kinds of crazy plays where he combines his IQ and his athleticism and flies out of nowhere for a block or a steal. He's in good help position constantly. Like, there's so much basketball IQ in Anthony Edwards. And offensively, like, he's not selfish. Like, he doesn't take some exorbitant amount of bad shots, and he's used to playing with other players who handle the ball and make decisions, whether that be a point guard in Mike Conley or a big in Karl Anthony Towns that handles quite a bit and is a shot creator. So like he's used to playing, and I think he'll fit in just fine. Like I also think that Steve Kerr is in charge here, and he's going to put the ball in Steph Curry's hands, not just because he's his coach of the Warriors, but because he trusts Steph to manage the team. And after Steph, it'll be LeBron. And actually, it's probably the other way around. It's probably LeBron first, although I don't know how many minutes LeBron is going to play except for in the most competitive of games. I think if LeBron plays 15 minutes a night, he's going to be pretty psyched about this. He's like, I'm here because I want to win a gold medal. I'm here to play with Steph specifically because they've never got the chance to do that before. But, like, I think that the older guys on this team are perfectly fine with letting Anthony Edwards, the younger player, carry the load. And Tyrese Halliburton, carry a load. Like, you're the young guys. You're the future. And when it comes down to games of consequence, these things tend to play themselves out the right way. And, like, there is no greater example of this than in 2008 on the Redeem team. Like, LeBron was nearing the peak of his powers. They would come just a couple of years later, probably like 2010 to 2017. LeBron's probably the absolute highest version of him, combo of experience, IQ, athleticism, etc. But 2008, he's the best player on the planet. Kobe's right there with him, but Kobe's the vet. And in those games, or in the game against Spain, the gold medal game, they needed a big shot. And while I do think, statistically speaking, Kobe's late game heroics are overrated as one of the greatest closers ever, because statistically speaking, he's not. But part of that is that dude was not afraid of anything on a basketball court, and he was willing to take the shot, which means sometimes you miss. And against Spain, he did not miss. And Kobe set a standard first defensively, and there's this amazing story, Dwayne Wade and others tell it in the Redeem Team doc, where they had just, obviously acquired Powell with the Lakers. They had lost the finals and were getting ready to, we didn't know it at the time, but win 2 championships, all that. And Kobe was like, first play of the game, I know what play they're going to run. Powell's going to screen, and I'm going to run through his chest. And Kobe did that, like, in a kind of not cool way. Like, it was that intense of a destruction of running full speed through a dude's chest in the Olympic Games. And you're like, bro. But he wanted to set a competitive standard, and it was on. And then he obviously hits the big shot late. But I do think that late in a game, like, the ball's going to be in LeBron's hands because he's LeBron freaking James. And Anthony Edwards is probably going to be like, yeah, he's LeBron James. I want the shot, but he's LeBron James. But I do think that, like, on a night-in, night-out basis for this team throughout the tournament, Anthony Edwards is probably going to lead them in minutes, and thus will probably actually lead them in shots. And if this is what it takes for him to get mentally into that mode, that's fine. But I always wonder with Ant, because I'm like, you like Karl Towns too much, but he's also a good teammate, and Towns is his guy in Minnesota, but that's like, it's a weird group of dudes there in Minnesota. But if this is what it takes, he's actually is one of the best players currently, like current form. He's right up there. I don't think he's the best player on the team, but he's damn close to it. It is what it is. Now, I do think it's funny that everyone's like, oh, he's not going to shake the MJ comparisons with this. Like, this is MJ in 92. Like, no, MJ in 92 was the best player on the planet. Anthony Edwards is not that. Joel Embiid's the best player on this team when he's healthy. And I think that's another thing that should be mentioned is, like, yeah, who should be featured heavily, 15 to 20 minutes a night that will destroy everyone is Joel. Just, like, let Joel be Joel. He's the best player, arguably, on the entire planet. But I do think in the up and down, transition, shorter three-pointer game that is FIBA basketball, like, Anthony Edwards is going to be excellent.
I was looking at this roster. They are old, man, compared to, like, some of the – I guess you compare it to the 92 team. But, like, you look at 2008, you look at 2012.
Yeah, they let some vets on. But they also have, like, this is actually why it's important that Anthony Edwards is kind of the guy on this team, is moving forward, him and Tyrese Halliburton are the future with Jason Tatum, but like 4 years from now, Tatum will be 30.
Yep, D-Book.
Yeah.
30. Yeah.
Booker's 26, Tatum is 26. That's kind of the middle generation. And this has happened with, I'll use another dominant team in the U.S. circles. Like the U.S. women's national team has had this problem. Is like the middle generation is kind of not there, and it's got them caught in a weird spot where some of the older guys or older women on that team had to be held on to for a little bit too long, and there's a young group coming, but they're not quite ready yet. USA basketball is, I think, threaded the needle nicely here, in part because LeBron James is an alien who's still playing stupidly high-level basketball at the age of 40, and Steph is like 37 and still like one of the 10 best players in the world. So they get to cheat a little bit there, but there is kind of this thinner middle that the best players in that age group of the guys who are like currently in their peak of their powers primes are international guys.
Yeah.
You know, Luka's getting there, but Jokic, Embiid, Giannis. Luckily for USA basketball, like Joel decided he wanted to play for Team USA, not France or Cameroon. So worked out, but he's also a little bit older in that age range as well, where 4 years from now, who knows if he's still what he's doing, you know, with the way his injury history has gone.
That French team would have been nasty with Joel.
Still is nasty.
Oh, yeah, it is.
But they could have had Gobert, Wemby, and Joel just play together.
Can you play zone?
You sure can. You sure
That
can.
would have been brutal. Yeah.
Who do you put in the middle of your 2-3 zone with those three?
I'll probably put in Embiid. Rudy can, you know, he's a little bit more mobile than Joel.
Yeah, that's probably the right. That's probably the right.
And then Wemby can just cover so much.
No, they don't have to move. They just have to stand there with their arms out, because like one of the guards would be Bilal.
Good gracious.
And then Evan Fournier, who turns into like God when he puts on a France jersey.
Yeah.
He's like 6'5".
Yeah. I'm excited.
France is good. Canada's real good.
Yep.
Serbia's got Jokic and a couple other dudes. Like it's not a cakewalk. This U.S. team should win gold, but it's not a cakewalk. They're gonna have a much harder time than the ladies will.
Yeah.
So we'll see. It's a couple weeks. Get started. July 24th, I believe, is when games open. Although I might have my dates mixed up. That might be when the soccer tournament opens, but it might be both of them. I don't know. We're a couple weeks away from the Olympics. I'm going. I'm excited. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. When we get back, our weekend in review, which means I get to talk about my hat. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980, where you could see, if you were watching, that I am wearing a plus 44 hat. Anthony, do you know the brand / the man behind the hat that I'm wearing?
44?
Yeah, plus 44. Whose signature is on the side right here?
Oh, yes. Lewis Hamilton.
That is correct. That is your 2024 British Grand Prix champion, Lewis Hamilton. Weekend in review time. Brian Mitchell joining us coming up in 10 minutes to talk about the Brandon Aiyuk TikTok saga involving the Commanders and Jaden Daniels. But in the meantime, quick weekend in review, which will mostly be, oh my God, did you watch any of this? / did it infiltrate your social media timelines? Because I watched it, because I watch Formula One every weekend, and wow, it was emotional. Wow, it was awesome. Wow, it was cool. Did it infiltrate your weekend of partying in Dallas and celebrating your birthday?
I did not watch it, but I did get the alerts via Twitter, things of that nature. I didn't spend too much time on social media, to be honest. I'm not gonna lie.
Honestly, good for you. Good for you. I was just curious, because like my timeline then turned into nothing but Lewis Hamilton posts. Because like you like one, and then the algorithm's like, oh, you like this. And I've got a lot of Formula One stuff on my timelines, especially on Instagram anyway. But to try to explain to people the significance of this is like LeBron James winning another NBA championship this year. Except for somehow more meaningful. It'd be winning another, like, in some ways, this is LeBron. Had he won multiple championships the first time around with the Cavs, going back to Cleveland and winning another one before going to the Lakers. So this would be 20. Had they won in what was his last year? 2018 was his last year in Cleveland? 2019?
Bronze, 2018.
Yeah. So had they won in 2018, this is kind of the closest that it would have been to that. Because Lewis Hamilton, who is the probably best, most successful driver in the history of the sport, for my money, he's the best. 7-time world champion, holds all kinds of records, including now one that he had tied and broke with this win, which is most wins on a single track. That single track is Silverstone in England, home of the British Grand Prix, which he has now won 9 times. No one has ever won at any single track more than 8, and he obviously he was tied at 8. It's his 104th career win, 150th podium with his team Mercedes that he's been with for the majority of his career. He won his first world championship in 2008 with McLaren, and then has won 6 more with Mercedes. And next year he is leaving for Ferrari. That was like a huge shockwave that was uncovered / announced ultimately before the season. So it's this kind of weird year, and Mercedes has really struggled the last couple of years. Red Bull has been thoroughly dominant. Their cars have been so much better. Red Bull seems to be coming back to the pack. McLaren looks awesome. McLaren should have frankly been 1-2 in this race, and they made 2 huge strategic errors that cost them. And Lewis's teammate with Mercedes, George Russell, who started this race on pole, had an issue and had to retire the car. So all of a sudden, Lewis finds himself in first, makes all the right decisions with him along with his team, and you can, as he's crossing the finish line, and they're on the radio, they're celebrating. His message back, you can hear it. He's crying because it means so much to him. He's almost 40 years old. He is still an elite racing driver. Finally, after years of struggle, they've gotten the car in a place where he can win, and like, it is the closest thing I can think of in sports, in American sports at least recently, is LeBron winning in Cleveland. Like, him to win his home race in Great Britain, because he is British, which seems like an important thing to note here that I don't know that I did. But winning his home race, his final race there for Mercedes, who he still has so much respect for even though he's leaving. They have so much respect for him, obviously, because he's the greatest of all time. It's too good to be true. And then pile on the emotion of his dad, and he shared this incredible embrace afterwards. His mom is there. For the English, it gets even better because ultimately Lewis and George, the 2 drivers, are sitting on like this huge stage afterwards because they do all these promotional events around. So after they've celebrated, after this, they go out to do their little post thing with the fans, and they all sit there and watch England in the Euros together on this giant screen. So there's like added amazingness to the day. And it's just an all-in-all incredible weekend. And I was struck by the emotion of it all. I'm a huge fan of his, and that's my favorite driver and all that kind of stuff. So, like, obviously, as a fan, super duper happy that my favorite guy won. But it's kind of that same emotion that you felt when watching LeBron win it for the Cavaliers, where you're like, this means so much more than just a great player winning a championship. And so to see that was just ultra, ultra cool, man. And it's the best of sports. It's the best of what sports is about.
So I don't know too much about the F1 series and things of that. So when is, like, I guess, is there a Super Bowl of?
There's not a Super Bowl.
Okay.
So it's a year-long. It's much more European in how they do it. We're like in Europe, there's no playoffs in European soccer, for instance. They play, which actually, if you think about it, is a better way to decide it. A fairer way, I should say, to decide a champion. Right? We don't not you play all those games to get into a tournament at the end. No. You play the entire season, and whoever's the best, they win the championship because you have this large sample. Like, baseball is the silliest. We play 162 games to see if you can survive a best of 5 and then a best of 7. Like, it's kind of silly the way we do it, but the pressure's up, but then we all know it, like, relies on luck and health and whatever. And, you can round into form as a team. And so I do think there is merit to the American system as well and the ability to build your team as the year goes. Obviously, playoff sports are the best. And, like, in major tournaments, there's, the knockout rounds, et cetera, and the tension's so high. But, no, Formula One is this is the longest season they've ever had. I think it's 23 races, and there's a certain number of points you get for finishing 1st through 10th. You add up all the points at the end, and the last 3 years, Max Verstappen has won, and it's very annoying, and everyone hates it.
I was about to say, you ain't got to say it like that, correct?
Why not?
I'm just saying, man. Do you think Max will have a chance to actually?
Oh, he's still very far ahead.
Okay.
This season, but the pack is starting to catch him. He had a great race, finished second. But as I said, McLaren finished where they finished 3rd and 4th. They should have been 1st and 2nd. They made one mistake with one driver that screwed him over, and then a different mistake with their other driver that screwed him over. But they got the best car right now, so we'll see. But everyone now goes on summer break, so got a while until the next race, I think. Or there might be one more than a summer break. There might be like a 2-week break here, and then they've had 3 in a row, which is the most they'll ever cram back to back to back. So we'll see when everyone comes back from break what kind of upgrades they have on their cars. But yeah, we got racing at the top. But here's the thing you actually have to know about Formula One. It's not a racing competition. It's an engineering competition. Because unlike NASCAR and all these other things where, like, the cars are the same, they have to build the cars. So it's an engineering competition. And then the drivers get to play with the toys that are multi-million dollar toys.
Seems like a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. And if you watch Drive to Survive on Netflix and all the storylines, it also is super gossipy, which is a good time. Because that's all sports are, as Le Batard loves to say. It's just a male soap opera. And boy, is F1 good at that. All right, when we get back here on the Hoffman Show, Brian Mitchell joins us. Speaking of soap operas, what the hell is going on with Brandon Aiyuk's TikTok and Jaden Daniels and all this? Is it a big deal? Is it not? We'll ask B. Mitch next. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app and streaming on YouTube at the Team 980. Right now, it is our pleasure to welcome in our friend and colleague, Brian Mitchell, of course, host of B. Mitch and Finley, Ring of Honor member for the Commanders as well. B. Mitch, what's up, dude? How are you?
What's up, Craig? How you doing, man?
I'm doing well. So I really wanted to have you on the show because I have no idea what to make of this Brandon Aiyuk TikTok situation, because it's one of those things that I could just as easily make the case that it's not a big deal at all, or that this is a problem. And I lean on someone like you here because you played and I didn't, and within a locker room, you have just an understanding that I don't about how big of a deal this is. So I know you guys talked about it on the show today. You and JP did. Yeah. What do you make of the fact that, for those, and I'll recap quickly for the audience here and then let you go, that Brandon Aiyuk took a screenshot or a picture of what presumably is Jaden Daniels' iPad with practice footage on it. It's one picture. There's no actual play run, anything, but it's one picture. It winds up on Brandon Aiyuk's TikTok. What do you make of it?
Well, I think, it could be, that's just like you said, it could be seen as a nothing if it doesn't happen again, okay? But ultimately, what's happening here, and we've seen multiple things where he had a FaceTime earlier with Jaden Daniels, and he put that on social media. The whole thing about it is Jaden Daniels is a friend of Brandon Aiyuk, okay? And I said this to JP this morning. I've sat here and watched some film with a friend of mine that was on another team, because I wanted to get his opinion of what he was seeing, okay? Because when they're teaching their guys, they're telling them something I might be thinking. So I don't see it as that big of a problem. But what's happening right now is Brandon Aiyuk is in a negotiation battle. And he seems to be trying to use Jaden to get there. And Jaden is in this thing, and he's with his friend. He's talking to him and stuff like that. He may have seen a picture, but what NFL player hadn't seen the whole playbook already, per se, because they're breaking it down, and they know everything they're doing anyway. So I'm not concerned about that. I'm concerned about the distrust that seems to be happening. So if I can take everything you and I are talking about in private, and promote it to try to put myself in a position, I'm now putting you in a position, because I'll take it a step farther what probably nobody thought about. So when he posts that set, what are all the players that are on the Commanders right now thinking? Right. Is Jahan Dotson thinking that they're talking about him? Is Terry McLaurin thinking they're talking about him? Or other people thinking stuff? And now you got people looking side-eyed at Jaden Daniels. As I stated earlier, and I'll state this in Brandon Aiyuk's face and anybody else out there, when you got a guy trying to make his own way, you don't bring extra pressure and extra stress to him. And that seems to be what Brandon Aiyuk right now is doing with Jaden Daniels. Now, Jaden has been great. Hadn't said anything stupid, hadn't done anything stupid. He hadn't even said nothing about this whole situation. But eventually, when they get back to training camp and they get back to being around reporters, every time something goes down, he's going to be asked questions. Is that fair to him? No. And Brandon Aiyuk needs to understand that as a friend, you can't keep doing that to your boy.
So this makes me happy, Brian, because you and I are actually in very similar places on this, almost the exact same place on this as to where I started the show. And I was like, we're going to have Brian on later. I'm very curious what he thinks, and I value your opinion a lot on this particular subject. But I am not scared at all about some competitive advantage here that all of a sudden, oh my God, the 49ers or the world gets anything out of this screenshot, or even, like you said, of Aiyuk watching film with Jaden. That I can actually make an argument that's a good thing for Jaden, because Brandon has been in the NFL and playing under a detail-oriented coach in Kyle Shanahan for a long time. Totally. And I actually think that's probably ultimately a net positive. But it does seem like, for a franchise in Washington that has been involved in so many messes the last 25 years and seems to have gotten rid of a lot of them, if not all of them, but can't escape the kind of the national narrative of messiness, this is now bringing the 49ers Aiyuk mess to Washington. And my question, I guess, would then be, like, if you're Jaden, do you feel like you can stand up as a young guy, as a rookie? Or if you're Dan Quinn or Adam Peters, are you giving your second overall pick a call, being like, hey, we need to have a chat real quick?
Well, Dan Quinn and Adam Peters have every right to call Jaden and talk to him and find out what happened and see if they get an answer that they agree with. Okay? Jaden Daniels, on the other hand, has to understand a lot of friends have been the biggest downfall of a lot of our friends out there in the world. It's not always your foes. And sometimes your friend is just, man, I'm just trying to get paid. Yeah, but you don't have to step on top of my head to get paid. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because the ultimate thing for me is Jaden Daniels has rolled in this thing and has done everything that he was supposed to do. And some believe he's done more than he was supposed to do at this point. Why now would you have people wanting to question him or thinking that this is the thing? I don't want those, and they're out there, are going to start saying, well, he must be telling Brandon he'd rather him on the team than Terry, than Jahan, than anybody else out there. But when you start hearing the people inside the building, you know the true story. Every time Jaden shows up at 5:30, 5:45, Luke McCaffrey is showing up. Terry's the guy that's always there helping out everybody and doing things. So there's a lot of positivity going on. Brandon Aiyuk right now is loyal to whoever is going to pay him. He's loyal to whoever can help him get paid. And I think that is where you have to know it as a friend. So I got a lot of friends, okay? And I got friends, they'll tell you straight up, when you're helping me, I do anything for you. When I think you're trying to use me, I will check your ass in a heartbeat. And I think that's where those young dudes have to get to, because young people today think, oh, he my friend, he ain't going to ever do nothing wrong. Sometimes him trying to do something that you think is not wrong can affect you, and you got to be careful with that.
Brian Mitchell, host of B. Mitch and Finley over on 106.7 The Fan. Of course, you can listen to Brian and JP on the free Odyssey app as well, where you can listen to us daily and check out both of our shows' podcasts on demand if you miss any part of it. I'm going to ask this open-ended, B. Mitch, without any other settap. Does this change the way you see Jaden at all?
No, it doesn't.
Okay, same, just for the record.
No, things are the same for me, but I think that his eyes should be open. See, people don't realize I came into this league as one of the most brash guys out there. I got in some trouble early on and did all kind of little things, but I learned from those things and didn't do them again. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So he's going to have to learn, and this is nothing anywhere close to being super serious. But he's going to have to learn that sometimes you just got to make sure you put your foot down and you say, "Oh man, look, I would rather you not post this stuff or put this stuff out in the public. I'm your boy and I'm gonna be here for you, but I would rather you not put everything out that we discuss about." You know what I'm saying?
100%.
Like if you go to a guy and you say off the record, and he tells you something, and then you go report it, you won't get anything off the record again. I promise you that.
Right. And he'd have every right to be mad at me and hey, I told you that off the record. That's how that works. And not everybody. I do think that is something that generationally is different now. So much of people's lives is online, and I think it's a thing you learn the more you get older. Now I sound like I'm 1,000 years old, but I don't care.
You're not thought you just got more knowledge. And see, this is the thing.
But the thing is,
I have a problem with Brandon Aiyuk is doing only because he brought Jaden into it.
Right. Yeah.
If you're trying to get paid, you can get on social media, say what the hell you want, just talk about you. Right. You want to get paid, you want to stop following the 49ers, do that. Do whatever you want to do to try to put the pressure on them to get your money. But once you start bringing somebody else's life and you start affecting what people think about them, then that's a problem.
Totally. And what I was gonna say to wrap up on this point, Brian, is I think that there's a thought when you're younger that everything is online. Everybody's life is 100% online. And I think what you realize when you get older is, no, people post their highlight reels online. And that's a very different reality. And it's okay to not post it. Even it's not always the highlight reels. People are sharing real stuff online, like pain and and serious things that happen to them, and that can be good and important to have shared experiences so people don't feel like they're alone and when a certain thing happens to them. So I'm not saying that any person can't share anything online, but what people have to realize is not everything needs to be online, and that seems to be something that Brandon Aiyuk and Jaden Daniels are both relatively young dudes, and I think Aiyuk might be figuring out in real time, or perhaps will be told he needs to figure out in real time. Brian Mitchell is our guest, host, of course, of B. Mitch and Finley over on 106.7 The Fan. Brian, I've been taking in a lot of the national podcasts recently, and a lot of them are doing their rankings shows and all these kinds of things, and obviously the Commanders are coming in fairly low, as you'd imagine, in a lot of these rankings. Yeah. The thing that concerns them the most is the offensive line. How concerned are you here a couple weeks from training camp? 1, I'm not concerned at all. 10, this is a 5-alarm fire, and I agree with all the national pundits who think the Commanders are going to stink because their line's not good enough.
I'm going to say I'm definitely not concerned. I'm not going to say I'm not concerned at all. I'm looking at it. You say 1 is the highest, right?
1 is the lowest. 1 is no concern. 10 is the fire.
Okay, so no, I think it's somewhere around a 3 or 4 in my book. And the reason I say that, you got right guard, cool. Last year, Wally didn't play as well. I think he'll play better this year. And you got Biadish and also Allegretti. Those 2 guys can play. Left tackle, to me, I think Cornelius Lucas, to me, I'm not going to lie, I think he's better than what we had last year. That's just my opinion. I also believe that Kingsbury is not going to just put guys out there and expect them to just block without giving them some help. People have to realize Jim Lachey, who was great on this team, Joe Jacoby, who was great on this team, they got help. And when you just put guys out there, the defensive players in this league are more athletic than the offensive players. And if you don't have a Trent Williams all over the place, you're going to most times have the defensive player being just better than your guy. So you need to give him a chip here, a chip there, from a running back, from a tight end, from a physical receiver, to where that guy has to be concerned. So I believe that they will make that adjustment. Now, if Coleman decides to begin to play well and they want to put him over there at left tackle, which they believe he can play, then you put him over there. But still, as a young man, you give him some help, right? So it comes down to the adjustments that are made. Scott didn't do it, and Eric didn't do it a lot last year. So ultimately what's going to have to happen, if they don't have the best of the best, like the Eagles have for a while now, like the Cowboys have for a long time, like the Washington Redskins of the past were when they had the Hogs. If you don't have that, then you need to be helping them out some type of way to give yourself a chance. A running back chipping on an end and then releasing out, that's a safety valve for you right there. And that guy gets you 10 yards. 10 yards gets your first down. Just move the offense.
Definitely. And the play calling. I think that, to me, when I listen to, and like these people that I'm listening to I'm listening to them not to get, like, I'm not hate listening. These are friends of mine throughout the league. I'll single out like Robert Mays from The Athletic. The Athletic Football Show is, for my money, the best national football podcast out there. But I listen to some of the people that Robert has had on, and even Robert's own take on the Commanders, and I just don't get the sense that nationally people appreciate, and I don't mean to pick on Eric here, but how bad EB was last year. That the play calling, and you can certainly speak to this from the offense that y'all ran back when you were winning Super Bowl rings, like the play calling can also protect an offensive line. And last year it did the opposite. It exposed the offensive line. And so I just think based off that, they're going to be so much better because I think Dan Quinn's oversight as the head coach will not allow Cliff to do some of the things that Eric Bieniemy did unchecked from Ron Rivera last year.
Mm-hmm. I just think it's like a combination. Now, Eric didn't do his best, but the offensive line wasn't good. And then we saw Leno, they were coming off the edge. He was like a turnstile. And then when you have a quarterback that does not release the football, that makes it even worse.
Sure.
So you don't know what happened because as soon as Jacoby Brissett came in with the same offensive line, same play calling, the offense moved right down the field. So I think that a lot of that had to do with Sam and his let's say inexperience. I'm not going to sit up here and put it all in, but he had some inexperience where he would not anticipate passes. You have to do that. But still, your offensive line, you have to help them out. And you have to make sure on the edges that you don't have a super athletic defensive end having a field day to tee off on your tackle all day. And if they can help that out on either side, I think in the interior, I think they'll be good.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good clarification. It's the mix of it, like Eric didn't do a good job for Sam, but that also is inherent on Sam being Sam and the offensive line in front of him having its limitations as well. So that's a good clarification. Brian Mitchell, host of B. Mitch and Finley, 106.7 The Fan, weekdays 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. B. Mitch, always a pleasure, sir. Thanks for some time this evening.
Appreciate you, Craig. Take care, brother.
That is Brian Mitchell, everybody. Hopefully in the Hall of Fame soon. Should be. Ring of Fame and one of the best players to ever put on the burgundy and gold, and the second all-time leader in all-purpose yards in NFL history. Just your Brian Mitchell standard fun facts that are required anytime you have Brian Mitchell on the show, at least on this show. When we get back here on the Team 980, Anthony, I did the thing again. Did the thing where I forgot what we're doing. Oh, WNBA Rookie of the Year race, right?
Yes, sir.
I remembered. what's coming up on the show I host? Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese both set WNBA records this weekend. We will talk about them both and the Rookie of the Year race, which is truly, honestly fascinating, next on the Team 980. Final hour of the Hoffman Show here on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. If you missed any part of it, including Brian Mitchell, to start our 6 p.m. hour, make sure you check the Hoffman Show podcast. And we're going to debut something new coming up in 15 minutes. Our favorite thing from the show today, which is a story from the 4 o'clock hour from our colleague Ryan Clary. So you definitely don't want to miss that before Real Things to close out the show. The end of our show. It's already a banger with Real Things every day, but now we're adding something else. The best thing we did before the end of the show every single day here on the Team 980. Okay. By the way, final score. Many of you might know this because you're now turning over from the Fan. The Cardinals just beat the Nats 6-0. So that is done and dusted down the street at Nats Park, which hopefully, Anthony, is enough time for all the people to leave and for us to be able to get out of here in 30 minutes without too much chaos. Because really, I'm selfish.
I love the optimism. I don't think that's going to be the case, though.
You think that the Metro is going to be a nightmare and or however you're getting home, traffic could be a mess?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Everybody go home. Actually, you don't got to get home, but you got to get the heck up out of here.
Yeah.
That's
what he said.
To quote the legendary Stu Scott. The WNBA's Rookie of the Year race is coming down to what we all thought it might coming out of the college season. If you watch just college basketball, you're like, oh, it's going to be Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. Then all of a sudden, Reese goes 7 in the draft. You're like, you're telling me all these other players could go ahead in the Rookie of the Year race? And it sure looks like, at least for their rookie seasons, perhaps that's not going to be the case. Now, I think like the Mystics would still tell you they're perfectly happy with their pick of Aaliyah Edwards in the long run, and we'll see what Cameron Brink does when she gets back next year. And Rakia Jackson's had a nice rookie year for LA. Like, long-term prospects are still very good. But Angel Reese has been tremendously effective as a rookie, and Caitlin Clark has been, I think, what any reasonable person has expected her to be as a rookie. Someone who has some growing pains but is still putting up spectacular numbers that are basically unprecedented for a rookie, including this weekend when she became the first ever rookie in WNBA history to record a triple-double. And it was not a little, she barely got, it was like, 15, 10, and 10. No, it was 19, 13, and 12, I believe, were the final counts for Caitlin Clark in her triple-double and their first win in 4 tries this year against the league best New York Liberty. Now, Angel Reese was like, I see your history. I got some too. She has now broken not a rookie record, a WNBA record for consecutive double-doubles. She has 13 straight double-doubles, does Angel Reese. And thus, there they are, at it again. 1, they're at it for Rookie of the Year. 2, they're also currently in 7th and 8th in the standings, so playoffs in the offing for both of them, should that hold, but they could easily wind up fighting for a playoff spot at the end. I, for one, hope that they do not, Anthony, because do you know who's currently 9th?
The Mystics.
Nope. Who else do we care about Mystics adjacent?
The Dallas Wings.
The Atlanta Dream.
The Dream.
Because the Mystics have Atlanta's pick. So if you got 2 teams in the lottery, them's good odds. Yeah. And potentially, if you wind up with picks, say 2 and 3, could you trade 2 and 3 for 1 and get Paige Beckers that way? Is that a good idea? We asked Sabrina Merchant last week. Go back and listen to the podcast. Anyway, Caitlin, Angel. Both making history, both balling out, both leading their teams, both improving with their teams. Their teams are improving, and they are improving as the year goes. You simply love to see it. It's so great to see young players that come across, especially with high expectations, come into the league and play like this. But as we near the halfway point, the ceremonial halfway point on the back end of this week, as we'll have All-Star and then the Olympic break, Anthony, do you have a distinctive favorite for Rookie of the Year?
I think the award should come down to whichever team is winning, but they're like neck and neck. So it doesn't.
Come on.
Hold on. You didn't let me finish.
Okay.
If I had to pick a person, though, I would say Caitlin Clark, just because she does more for her team. The fact that she's out here putting up 15, 8, and 8 almost. It's pretty impressive. And I'm not saying like Angel Reese doesn't necessarily have to do all the heavy lifting that Caitlin does, but I think when it comes to like these kinds of awards, we typically see guards, wings, win these awards unless the big is like super dominant. And I wouldn't necessarily say Angel's being dominant. Like she's having a very big impact on the game, but I don't think she's dominating like, we see Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid or Shaqs of the past. Like those are the kinds of bigs that, win these awards, or an A'ja Wilson, to, put the comparison.
Yeah, she's not a prolific scorer, and I don't think she will ever be, certainly to the extent that like A'ja Wilson is right now. Yeah. A'ja Wilson is the best player on the planet, and she is currently playing WNBA basketball as well as it's ever been played. She has scored more games. I think they've played 14 or 15 now. Whatever the number of games the Aces has played, she's scored significantly more points in those games than anyone else through that number of games in WNBA history. I apologize for not remembering the numbers off the top of my head. Angel Reese, in all likelihood, will never be that. A'ja is special. But you could still be an excellent big and like put up really good numbers. And she's averaging really good numbers. I mean, she's leading the WNBA in rebounding. I want to get to the rebounding thing in a second because there's a big asterisk on her rebounding number. But she's 14.1 points, 11.9 rebounds, almost 2 assists, and she averages a steal and a half. She's not actually a good shot blocker, or a great shot blocker, I should say. I think Clark is actually averaging, Angel's averaging 0.4 blocks per game. Caitlin Clark is actually averaging 0.8. She's just not a shot blocker. It's not who she is at the professional level, but she has tremendous hands and great anticipation, and she actually generates good steal numbers that way. She obviously, we're not, like, when we're talking about Rookie of the Year, I'm not talking about scouting reports and like, oh, well, she doesn't have a great outside jumper or anything like that. Like, what do you actually do? And she brings an attitude of toughness and a rebounding ability that is helping the Chicago Sky win basketball games. However, when we talk about Angel Reese and we talk about the fact that she leads the WNBA in rebounds, it must be said that she is averaging nearly 5 offensive rebounds per game. And you're going, wait, the way you set this up, Craig, was a negative. What is it? But she's averaging 5. That's amazing. 5 offensive rebounds a game is incredible. Around 40% of those offensive rebounds are her own misses. So as a big who's not taking a ton of shots outside, she is shooting 41.8% from the field. That is not great. Meanwhile, Clark is shooting 39.3% from the field, a worse number, but she's shooting 8 threes per game, which if you then get into the advanced metrics, like her effective field goal percentage is nearly, so it counts for the fact that 3 is more than 2, right? It counts basically 1.5 points instead of 1 point, percentage-wise. Clark is up near 50%, which is a really good number, and Angel, because she doesn't take any threes, is right there at 40. So from an efficiency standpoint, Clark is the far more effective offensive player. She's obviously averaging more points a game, nearly 17 a game. She's still averaging like 7, let's see, what are her big numbers? 6 rebounds, 7.4 assists. She's averaging a steal and a half per game. Her defense has gotten better as the year went. I actually think it's, I don't want to say a no-brainer because that's disrespectful to how good Angel has been. The fact that she's leading the league in rebounding as a rookie, even if a lot of them are coming on her own misses, is insanely impressive. But I do think that if I had a vote, I wouldn't think twice about voting for Clark. And actually, here are the true shooting and field goal percentage numbers. Clark's effective field goal percentage is 50.2, and her true shooting percentage, which also accounts for free throws, the way they weight it is like, percent-wise, a field goal is worth 2, a three-pointer is worth 3, and a free throw is worth 1, and then they put that into a percentage. Her true shooting percentage is 56.7, and she's got a pretty high usage rate at 24.5. Reese is 39.7 effective field goal compared to Clark's 50, 47 true shooting compared to Clark's 56, and her usage rate is lower. And their assist to turnover ratios actually aren't that different, even though Reese doesn't handle the ball that much. And Caitlin is obviously, well, she leads the league in turnovers by 1 million. She also has like 1,000 more dribbles than everybody else in the league and has been double teamed at a higher rate than any other player in the entire league. So if you look at the task and the production, I think it's not a no-brainer that it's Clark, but it's Clark.
If the Sky were a top 3 team in the league, would Angel Reese have a little bit more, say so in the
if
the
she
conversation?
Was driving that winning, yes. But
I think the 14-12 is like,
it's great statistically, but I also just don't think that like rookie of the year is a stat where it's not MVP. It's I want to know who's the best rookie, not who is. And, like, winning is, of course, a part of that formula. But it's not nearly as big of a part for me as MVP. Like, do you think that Chet Holmgren should have been Rookie of the Year over Wemby because Chet had a really solid year and OKC was first and Wemby was Wemby? Like, no. Of course not.
Yeah.
Don't give me that little bit of a head waggle. No. The answer is no. Wemby was on an awful Spurs team, and he was clearly the best player.
Yeah.
And I think the gap between Wemby and Chet is bigger, or was bigger last year. I mean, Wemby could have easily been, and maybe perhaps should have been, Defensive Player of the Year. Yeah. That's nuts. And Chet was good. But I think the gap is closer between Caitlin and Angel in terms of this year and what they've done so far. But I don't put the statistics that much into it.
Yeah.
I also think that, like, Caitlin has driven, to the extent that winning is being driven by either of these players, Caitlin has a much bigger impact, I think, on whether or not Indiana wins night in, night out than Angel does. But Angel has, certainly there are games you watch, and you're like, oh, no, she's a big part of this.
Including so, like, the game they played against each other.
Yeah, and Angel down that fourth quarter was incredible.
Yeah.
And Caitlin, frankly, wasn't very good. I don't think she got any help, but, like, I don't think she was that good either. At some point, if you're a great player, you got to figure it out. And Angel did, and Caitlin didn't. But that was one game. I think that by and large, you look at the season, Clark's just had a better year and a more effective year. And I think here's the other thing. I think Angel will continue to produce at roughly this level. And if anything, her rebounding numbers, I'm hoping for her sake, come down. Because I hope she starts to figure out how to finish more around the rim and her shooting percentages go up and thus her rebounds come down because she is rebounding such an insane both rate, which is impressive, but volume, which is not as good, of her own misses. You make more shots, and so maybe the scoring goes up a little bit, but maybe not by that much because if you are just taking one shot to score the same amount of points it used to take you 3, then your scoring average actually doesn't go up that much. Your rebounding numbers just come down, but your shooting percentages go up. Where Clark, I think, will continue. Like, I don't think that was her last triple-double. I think her assist numbers are going to go up. I think her turnover numbers will continue to come down. I think her rebounding numbers will continue to rise. And I think her scoring will finish this year. She's like 16-7 a game now. I think she finishes closer to 18 a game this year.
Gracious. It's a bad woman right there.
She's real good. real good. And she's going to get to rest. Finally. As will Angel. Yeah. But, my God, get to rest for the first time in like a year since they went to their college training camps last year.
Aren't they on the select team?
Yeah, but they don't go to Paris.
So they just play, though?
They might play some of the scrimmages to help Team USA get ready, but then they get like a month off.
Yeah.
Which will be nice. Next Mystics game is Wednesday, I believe, here on the Team 980. It's I think it's it's actually against Clark and the Fever. It's noon on Wednesday. Wacky noon bit. It's the camp game for Indiana. So a bunch of screaming kids at Gamebridge Fieldhouse, and you can watch it on Monumental, and that means you can listen to it right here on the Team 980, I do believe. When we get back here on the Hoffman Show, we'll wrap it up with the best thing from the show today and real things real people said into real microphones. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Been a good show. We pieced it together. It's one of those days where we're like, what's going on? I don't know. Brandon Aiyuk posted something silly on TikTok. That perhaps is a story. We talked about it with Brian Mitchell. We talked about it off the top of the show. If you missed it, check the Hoffman Show podcast for sure. We also, Caps named a new general manager today, upgrading Chris Patrick. We talked about that with Steve Wino. But the best thing on the show today, which is something we're going to start doing every single day here on the Hoffman Show, we're going to give you the best thing that we thought happened on the show today. And that came in our 4:30 segment with our pal Ryan Clary. Of course, the producer of Grant and Danny was at the Nationals game this weekend when Wilson Contreras launched a bomb right towards him, which he thought was what he wanted to happen. Turns out that is not what he wanted to happen. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. I hit the wrong button.
We've never caught a home run. How cool would it be to catch a home run? So, of course, we stay for that game, out in left field, in the sun, thinking like, let's have a good time, have a few drinks, whatever it is. 7th inning comes around. Wilson Contreras steps up to the plate, hits a screaming line drive. Craig.
109 exit velo, I saw.
109 off the bat. As soon as it goes up in the air, Craig, I look over to my friends. I don't even look over. We just kind of all stand up. We're like, oh, this is a home run. And then we say, as it's midair, probably like once it just got past the infield, I just go, oh, it's coming for us, boys. I literally say that. Like, it's coming for us. And lo and behold, about 2 seconds later, it is right there in my face. This ball is traveling so quick. I don't have a glove. I'm a few drinks in. I'm sunburnt. It's a whole disaster. And also, there's a little bit of a tail on the ball as well, kind of coming my way. It's not one of those balls that's just like directly at you. There's got a little curve to it. So it's kind of hooking back towards us. I did not move a single inch. I just froze. I did not know what to do. So, split-second decision. So I made the split-second decision to then kind of like turn around, thinking that I was just going to eat it and just get hit in the side. Because I wanted to catch a home run ball, but I didn't want to get...
You didn't want a home run ball to catch you.
Exactly. Yeah. My buddy stuck out his left hand. He was next to me. Mm-hmm. Made contact with his left hand, nailed him in the palm. He's got a bruise today. He's actually getting an x-ray, in fact. Today.
Yeah.
He's getting an x-ray.
Yikes.
It was that hard.
We unfortunately have not heard from Clary on the state of his friend's hand. So hopefully tomorrow, Anthony, we have an update on whether or not that is a broken hand. But that story, that was a short and truncated version. Definitely worth checking out the Hoffman Show podcast for.
Yes, definitely some more funny parts to the story. I tried to cut it down to,
You captured the essence.
Yeah.
I think you did a good job.
Yeah.
Excellent job on the edit there.
Thank you.
So that's the best thing that happened on the show today. Check out the Hoffman Show podcast for that or for the full show. That's the beauty of the podcast. This is how we end our show, though. It's real things real people said into real microphones.
Real things.
We're not going to be so this year.
Real people.
5-11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
Okay, so I've been sending Anthony various things for 4 days as he was on vacation. And I looked at him before the segment. I go, "Do you have anything for real things?" He's like, "I'm cutting this." I was like, we don't need to do that. So I've just been told, I can't click it myself. This is audio from Wimbledon. It's all you gave me.
This is our first time watching a tennis match, so we're very
excited. I know what this is. Hold on. Let me set this up better. So everyone's doing mic'd up segments. I know this. This is a good choice. I made fun of you, but this is a good choice. Everyone's doing mic'd up segments with players and coaches, etc. And Wimbledon decided, what if we did it with spectators? What if we did it with fans? And so they mic'd up random people, and this is overheard at Wimbledon. Righto.
This is our first time watching a tennis match, so we're very excited.
Can I need a pen? There's nothing better than a slightly warm pen.
Well, that pin was just really nice with that Prosecco in it.
Yep, it's very nice.
Very nice. I think we got the best of the weather while we was queuing. 6 hours we had sunshine. We've got in here and it's been cloudy.
The woman in front of us, her dress was so intensely strawberry.
And she had a strawberry bag to match as well.
There was more strawberry than non-strawberry.
A proper Wimbledon.
Great part is
time.
watching people's heads move back and forth.
Shot, played, cracking. You see that serve? That was like one of
The British are just, they're so funny. They're just they can't help it. We were in they just say things in such a funny way. While we were queuing, you know what that means, Anthony?
Queuing?
Queuing.
Chewing? No.
No.
Talking?
No. It means while they were waiting in line.
Oh my God.
It was so sunny while we were queuing. 6 hours we were queuing, and now we're here and it's cloudy. We got to get a sun in the sky.
I'm terrible at guessing.
You are really bad at it.
I mean, Standing was here too. He was
also really bad at it.
All right, give me one more.
Oh, you're gonna put me on this. I'm trying to think. Oh, is there more on that?
Oh yeah.
Let's see if we get another one.
See, this is one of the things I'm loving about being here, seeing that little puff of chalk, because they talk about it on the TV and you never actually see it.
8 seats round a dinner table. You're one of them. Who are the 7 guests?
Okay, well, I definitely have David Attenborough there, and nobody could trump
Nobody
him.
could trump him. I would now have Alcaraz because he's gorgeous.
Yes, he's quite nice.
Or Lahal. But I bet they'd be good fun.
They'd be good
wow,
fun.
Nice shot, Liam. There you go. That's how you hit a forehand. Come on, Liam.
It's an American, clearly.
Come on, Bojic.
Come on, we need another British saying for Anthony to screw up. Not one in there. Sorry, we'll come back. Maybe tomorrow we'll do a full segment of them. More British sayings. I don't know what we're doing on the show tomorrow because it's that kind of time of year. But we'll talk about sports and have fun. And those two things we can promise you. Again, you missed any part of the show, check out the podcast. And we'll see you tomorrow. BetMGM tonight is next on the Team 980.